Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are at our March 28th, 3 p.m. Regional Housing and Growth Issues Partnership, and we are recording this. This meeting will be posted on the website, so anyone who didn't have a chance to attend, who's in the advisory group or wants to review, they can go back to that at any time. So I would like to get started. We have a busy agenda. Our work group has been meeting in between our advisory group meetings, and we have been putting together the tasks that we all talk about at this meeting. And so we want to get everybody up to date. But first, I'm going to make a few announcements here. One is that we have been doing a lot more exploratory work on how and where we can use the American Recovery Plan Act, also known as ARPA dollars. And I was going to ask if Jake Geringer from the governor's office, who's in our panelists, could give us a brief update on where we're at with that today.
Sure, thank you, council member. So as of the past couple hours, the governor has signed House 701. So that's the authorizing legislation to provide 50 million of the American Rescue Plan Act dollars into the new Idaho Workforce Housing Fund. And so that, let's see, looking at its history, in the House, Amador supported that, and in the Senate, Souza and Riggs supported that. And in that bill, it provides for gap financing. There's a preference to projects with a local match, local government match, and 20% will be set aside for rural areas. Let's see, a couple of notes. There is a sunset in the legislation, and that is December 31st of 2026. And developers can apply for that money through the Idaho Housing and Finance Association. Leave it there, thank you. Great.
All right, Jake, thank you. Well, that is going to be news that people have been watching, so I appreciate you sharing that with us here. Secondly, I'm going to just share, ask Hillary to share a link with you, and I wanted to just, this didn't really fit into a category that we have other than this is ongoing work. And one of the things I'm going to be asking for here at the end of this meeting under our volunteer section is kind of this idea. What I'm sharing here, and I think I can open it. If you can see that. If you all want to grab that link just on your own, this was something that David shared with me, and I wanted to bring it up so that you got an idea of what are some of the processes that our work group goes through. We find ideas that other groups are looking at, have incorporated, and this happens to be one that incorporated solar power into funding some of their affordable housing programs, and then moving forward and reselling some of that power in order to generate revenue for ongoing projects. The reason I'm sharing that with you is that what our working group has been doing is, as we come across programs like this, we have our planners, our volunteers, and our researchers go by and find out if that's something that can actually work in our community. That's how we're building our toolkit. So that was just a new one that was interesting, and one we'll be talking about later on here in a few minutes, and probably later on in other meetings. I also wanted to mention in announcements here that there's been multiple conversations about the multi-generational housing code throughout Kootenai County and how that is working within each jurisdiction. That's a thing that all of the cities are talking about, and it isn't something that this group is taking any formal position or doing any formal work on, but I know that it's been one of the solutions in our toolkit we've been talking about, and there's going to be something more formal coming out on how that works, what it is, who's using it, and where the rest of the jurisdictions are in looking at multi-generational housing code. So just so you know, some of these things, as they start to get vetted out, they are actually a thing, but they're just at different stages and levels of progress depending on where we're at in Kootenai County. I would also tell you, some of you may have also mentioned the local builders panel. They do this annually. They do a Meet the Builder, and that is the Professional Women in Business and the Women's Association of Realtors put this together, and they have regional developers come and kind of roll out what the products and plans are that they're coming up with in this current season, where they have developments, what their homes are going to look like, what their price points are. And there was a story in the paper about that, but if you didn't see that, I'll just give you a couple of little facts. The lowest home price that was reported was $365,000, and it was a 598 square foot home. Some of the builders are looking at some ways to reduce some housing prices. And we have actually people who are setting up some meetings to see how we can collaborate, providing information to encourage and help them do that. Most of the builders are just reducing the number of units that they are producing, which means the supply will remain low, but they're citing increasing building costs and disruptions in the supply chain. So it's just becoming increasingly more difficult for them to build. Nobody sees the influx of folks slowing down anytime soon. And that was kind of the gist of what had happened at that meeting. I'll be preparing little pieces of that information here as we move forward. So down on further on the agenda, I had asked Councilmember Thorson from the city of Post Falls, who'd been working with this voluntary campaign on the residential owned housing, to give us an update if there's any new news. And Carrie, did you have anything to share? Right after you hit that button so we can hear you. Did this happen last time and I ended up? Okay.
I'm here.
Okay, she's here.
I was lost. Yeah, there's not a huge amount to share. Had continuing conversations with Victoria with Rock that deals with mobile home parks in Washington and Idaho, getting her information about mobile home park owners so that then she can be contacting them about the alternative way to let the mobile home owners eventually become co-op owners of the park in lieu of selling to an investor, an outside investor. So that's just ongoing. I will tell you that I forgot to mute my phone. So that will happen here. In Kootenai County, and the cities within Kootenai County, I am finding 0 mobile homes for rent or for sale. So that little segment of the housing population are pretty entrenched, unless they're going to get bumped when somebody buys a mobile home park, raises the park rent beyond what they can do. So there's not a lot there. And in a recent conversation with Bob Seal, thinking about, like, in the city of Post Falls, the little infill lots that we have throughout the city that are not in subdivisions, that are just throughout the city and in the older parts of the city. We don't have a zoning restriction on putting a mobile home there, except that it could not possibly be a single wide. It could be double wide or a manufactured home. So the challenge would be, if you could in fact find one of those lots, afford one of those lots, and then you would still need to purchase a manufactured home. You would still need to put it on a foundation. You would still need to do all the improvements that anyone else for a stick-built home. So I am not the bearer of much good news.
Well, we're not alone. We are doing our best to move the needle here a little bit and do something positive. I'll dovetail and share that at the same developers meeting, they said a lot of the mobile homes that are on the market were purchased by folks who are waiting for their home to be built. So maybe we can cross our fingers that they'll flip those mobile homes once their house is built, and there'll be some more inventory there. But there's apparently some real estate brokerages who sort of use that There's also some developers who are starting to build rentals within their products just because they have to have places for people to live until their home is built, and the lag time is taking a long time. So, well, great. Well, Carrie, stay at that. I know that there's other people throughout the region who are looking at that, and that's kind of one of those foundational things, that's education that needs to go out there so that those owners understand it and they're ready, and the folks who live there are ready should the opportunity arise and it's not missed. So thanks for staying on that one. So then next up, Maggie, who has been, oh my gosh, a workhorse out in the field on trying to get some things done in this arena. And I so appreciate all of the work that she's been doing in the presentations we'll talk about a little bit. But Maggie's going to do a brief update on the work she's been doing on legal findings and the work that, the scope that Panhandle Affordable Housing Alliance and possibly the land trust model and some of those areas. So Maggie, if you'd share with us the progress, that'd be great.
Great, thanks, Kiki. Yeah, it's a really good opportunity here through, I think, Panhandle Affordable Housing Alliance is a nonprofit to facilitate options for private landowners. We've hired a legal counsel who has worked in low-income housing and with IHFA for a number of years, really to help us evaluate the viability of PAHA providing a conduit for land trust ownership, as well as how we can partner and walk alongside the private market, being landowners, developers, and employers who fall into that same. But we're talking to a couple of employers who own land and want to do their own employee development. Really encouraged actually with what we're finding through legal with respect to the owner deed restrictions and the flexibility that they have, as long as they're not violating any one of the protected federal classes, to provide really both protection for our local workers as well as affordability long term. I didn't appreciate that the private landowners could put in a maximum amount of appreciation if they choose to do that. I think it's a little bit problematic on how that would be managed. I think the affordability and perpetuity will be most accomplished through the land trust. But PAHA is positioned, I think, to be one of probably several players in the community land trust arena. I think it's certainly viable. And so I think at this point now, where we are is as it continues to grow and evolve, the focus for PAHA within its own mission is really home ownership for this work. And that really is trying to target 60% area median income to about 120%. There are a number of great financing options out there for first-time home buyers that fall into the very, the lower tranches, if you will, of income. And I can tell you there is a local bank here that's very willing to work with us on mortgages and facilitating that. And so I think right now what we're finding in this research period is a lot of appetite and a lot of flexibility to really start moving the needle, to start getting some inventory built and available for our lower income workers. And I think that's really encouraging. Honestly, when we first started this was our hope. We knew that other communities were doing it, but now I see, and Kiki and the rest of the working group, I think with everything that's being researched and discovered, I think there's really a lot of reason to, when we're talking to people, to encourage them to have hope that we can find these solutions and that these solutions are viable right here in Kootenai County. So I don't know if there are questions, Kiki, but.
Great, thank you, Maggie. And I think some key things that our advisory group needs to take away from that is that this isn't low income, this is lower income. This is, that the housing prices have changed. We all know that from what our median area income is. And this lower income is now people that are making $65,000 a year, and they're local workers, and we do have some avenues that Maggie's forging for us to try to solve some issues in that. And as that evolves, I will tell you that we will probably have this on the agenda for every advisory group member, so that as things change and more Things are vetted out, processes are confirmed, and the methods in order to help the developers have a win-win in our community to provide solutions for our local workers. We'll keep sharing them on the agenda every month. So thank you. And if there are any questions, put them in the chat box. Sean will read them out and we'll get those answered either during the presentation conversations or before the end of the meeting. So next up, I want to talk about, share with you the other committees that we're building. What the partnership is doing is just creating where they're, as we evolve as a partnership and in supporting all of these toolkit items we've been discussing for 15 months now, we are building committees to start help us engage the people who have volunteered. They're anxious to support. There's a wealth of knowledge in our communities and they want to become involved. So I will tell you, I'll share briefly. I don't know if Tom is in this meeting or not, but Tom Lucas is formerly with Elder Help. We had been discussing the home share project in our work group. And technically there are dozens and dozens of them all over the country. What that entails is taking a local, usually empty nester, older person that maybe has a daylight basement with a bathroom, spare bedroom not being used, and going through one organization to connect through multiple nonprofits and citizens to match up a home provider with a home seeker. So the template that they follow does things usually like background checking both parties, setting up a match of like needs, then monitoring them to assure that there isn't issues going on, mediating if they have to, and then providing documents that help them both safely create this sort of a home provider and home seeker matchup. So that's one that there's the Area Agency on Aging, Community Action Partnership, Elder Help, Tom Lucas leading that, a number of folks from CD Aid and their social media outreach, a couple of other nonprofit organizations and volunteers are having a Zoom meeting this week to discuss how that lays out, what the template will look like. And so you'll be hearing more from that by next month. And that is one that I think they hope can be rolled out rather quickly on an educational campaign basis to be able to let the community know that this new option might be available. So you hear more about that, and I'm very appreciative of all those volunteers who's jumped up in that area. The next one is rentals. As we've gotten through this, we know that our housing study told us that although the rental market is flattening somewhat, there is, and we appear to have a good base of rentals. We still have kind of an offset of who's in those rentals. We're looking at a group of people who volunteered that want to take on possibly examining how many people are in need of rentals, in what approximate categories those are, and what capacity is out there right now, get some sort of feel on better handle on what the rental market in the future is coming up to be. I know that there are rental assistance programs out there and more folks who are looking at grants and doing all of that. So I'm going to try to connect all of the people who are working in that rental arena into one meeting to share information and not duplicate those services, and see how we can support each other under the partnership umbrella to regionally get data and resources on rentals out there. So that conversation will be coming up in 2 weeks. Then the next committee that's being formed is, there is a large group of people who are potentially wanting to do a voluntary funding ask. One of the things that we had learned, and I believe we shared with you last month, that under IHFA is a foundation that's called the Housing Partnership Foundation. We've had some great conversations with them and their ability to receive funds from different resources and be able to earmark them back to housing projects in Kootenai County, or even specifically to a project. So to use them as a funding trust for us is makes sense, and is one that this group will start discussing how we can coordinate that housing trust fund receipt of money, as well as private donor dollars, as well as utilizing some of the possibly ARPA dollars that we just heard may be available. And if there's matching into some of these other funds, we may have better ability to move some projects even forward sooner. So that sorry, did somebody say something? Sorry about that. So that project has about 6 or 7 folks with some background, financial capabilities, and they're going to come together to see what the best way to roll out some work that they can do within here. So if you have anyone who's interested from your jurisdictions or your organizations and knowing more about that one, please let me know. Last one is a developer outreach group. And one of the things that I know that many of us in the working group have been doing is talking to our builder developers and finding out, what their needs are, what their plans are, and letting them know that there are new options for them coming down the pike. Some of the templates that PAHA will be building, some of the partnership, public-private things that are coming down the pike may be ways that we can get a group together to keep the education component in front of the development community so that they have a better operation and knowledge of what's going on and what's available as we move forward. A lot of that, we just talked about presentations to the developers councils and working through NIBCA and some of the builder groups, because those are our key folks that we want to keep the private sector involved in moving a lot of that forward there. Just because that's so much information, we built a flow chart, and I believe I have it here. If not, Taryn, do you have it handy that you could screen share the flow chart real quick? This flow chart will be posted as soon as we vet out some more of the names, and we'll also be putting a little bit of a description, and it'll be legible, we promise, of what each of these volunteer subcommittees will be doing and how they're moving forward. It'll link back to a little bit of the scope of work on what they're doing. So as we did that, it used to be, as you recall, we had the working group and the advisory group, and now we're doing branching off into these voluntary subcommittees that are starting to do this other work. Most of these committees, just like with any other organization, they'll, as projects, needs, and information, they'll share back and forth to which ones are appropriate by the task at hand to be informed and be involved in that one.
Kiki, before we move on, there's a question. James McKay asked, how is the data on those in need in the community for rentals being collected?
That's not determined yet. There's many people who have data on rentals, including some of our state and local resources. So the goal is to take what we learned out of the housing study, that data, and then possibly using 2 different nonprofits to do an outreach to some of our industry organizations that we know have typically a pretty high rental base, and then trying to get a better handle on how much of a need there is and where we're at. We know that even since we started the conversation with the housing study, that they couldn't get into that because it's such a moving target. And I know that there were other reasons to try to drill down into what that need was. So we know that it's not going to be as specific as a point in time as far as data goes, but we are trying to get a better handle on how much effort we need to put in and where we're at in rentals. So there'll be more to come on how we're going to do that. Okay, so I wanted to move on. Our first, were there any other questions, Sean? I didn't mean to cut you off on that one.
No, that's the only one that I see.
Okay, thank you. So for the last few months, and actually going on for another month, probably, Maggie, myself, and Ginny Gilliam have been doing presentations. We've discussed it before, given you a brief on what that PowerPoint looks like. We have scheduled now all of the city councils, all of the planning and zoning commissions. We have all of the chambers of commerce scheduled, the college. We're working on the school boards. We have a number of different board of directors that we've gone to their organization, either in person or via Zoom, to do this presentation, and it has been evolving. I think every week or so, as new information is gathered, we've had to change the presentation. So One of our plans is that we will, after this next week, Melissa Cleveland and Taryn and myself are putting together a recorded version of this presentation in as much detail as we possibly can. And then that presentation will be linked to the website. So all of the advisory group members will be able to share that with their organizations. We'll do the expanded version of it. It won't have the Q&A at the end because obviously it will be a pre-recorded one, but we will try to take all of the questions that we've received from our presentations and add them into the discussion part of that PowerPoint so that you will be able to share it directly from a YouTube channel through the Regional Housing and Growth Issues Partnership. Now, keep in mind, it'll have big disclaimers because as Maggie is doing her due diligence and tons of footwork there, as Carrie, as everyone else in these subcommittees is pulling together the answers to the questions that we've been posing on what our solutions are in the toolkit, we will be adding and expanding that PowerPoint. The other thing that we're doing that came out of the polling question from our advisory group members is we have scripts written and we will be doing 30-second updates that we will post onto the website, which basically are kind of an expansion of the frequently asked questions. So they might be 45 seconds, but they're going to be very brief so that folks who don't have a way to sit down and watch a whole hour's worth of our advisory group meeting can click through there, find out what's important to them and their organization, be able to share that back via those little links on the YouTube for those blurbs. So we hope to plan on getting you an email out to all of the advisory group members to let you know when some of those are up and available, and then you can share with your respective organizations there. And Taryn, I think I ran into part of the web update stuff, but if I missed anything, will you go ahead and help with what's happening on the web updates and also the calendar?
And
So,
sorry to interrupt, but Ed has his hand up. I don't know if it was specific to what you were talking about. Kiki, do you want to? No? Okay.
Yeah, Sean, just interrupt me if there's any questions in the chat box that I need to pay attention to.
all right, so the website traffic is increasing. We're getting some more visitors there. And as Kiki mentioned, we do have, let's see if I can figure out how to share here. Let me go back here. We have the presentations all on the website. If you go under news and events, you can see updates and you can also view the schedule of presentations. And we've also added the solutions toolkit, which I don't know if we've shared with this group yet, but there's an awful lot of information on the website and on social media as well. And it would be great if we could get some more people sharing on social media and really helping get word out there. It's been a little quiet on the Facebook front.
Yeah, that's a challenge. We're all so busy, and I think we're all so digitally burned out that it's difficult to jump back in there. One thing I will mention on that, what's important on the web page is that where the events are, it says news and events, where that calendar is, it does indicate whether they're public or they're private meetings. So if you're wanting to see the presentation in person, you can look down there and it says public. If it's open to the public, you can feel free to attend one of those and share that with your group. So at this time, just because we've been talking about it and Taryn had her window open, if we didn't have any other questions we could answer right now, I was going to spend about 10 minutes and basically run through the slideshow of the PowerPoint. And at the end of that, we're going to do a poll because we have some direction that we need to move forward here and make sure that we're tracking with what our community wants and keeping you all involved and engaged. But we wanted to show you just a real kind of, not the presentation itself, but just some of the slides that we've been sharing so you can see what the rest of the community is seeing. Are you ready to do anything like that, Taryn?
Yes, I can do that.
As we know, even as we look at this information, it takes us 3 times to see it for it to actually sink in. So it's okay if you see it again or you've already seen it. There's probably something that you missed or we added. So we'll continue to keep sharing that.
Are you seeing the screen now? No.
Nope.
Here we go. I'm going to get this sooner or later, guys. Can you see it now?
I can see it now.
Okay, okay.
We do start out with something fun, and this is just kind of the, if we've seen it once, we've seen it 1,000 times. This affects everyone in our community. We give a little history on the partnership and what we're doing in the website. Then we move to our current goal. And this goal says current because we've been moving through different pieces of what the community wanted us to do. We then go through the partnership role. We have a lot more examples and descriptions that we do. We go through our progress. And then usually Maggie dives into a lot of the information about the study, and we remind folks, as you should, that the study is a link on the website. It's a really about 20-minute read for most people, so it's worth that time to dive into that. Then we share some demographic changes that were out of the study. We give them the real facts of where we're at. I'll tell you the realtors group said 515 is the new median home price, so we're changing these slides all the time. And then we share what you'd need to make in order to afford one of those homes. The middle income household issues, this is what we're facing and how it's going to affect all of us as a community. Then we talk about a little bit about the current supply and forecasted needs, our consequences of failing to address the needs, which we all think we know, but sometimes we get into more description. Then we have Ginny talking a lot about what's happening in economic development and where she's facing some real challenges. We talk about how we can solve some of these problems in different areas of public and private partnerships. Then we move into a couple of examples that we describe as part of the things that we are working on, which we keep changing the examples as we add more. Then we talk about policy changes a little bit. And then we share with them the website and how they can stay tuned into what our solutions are, and then how they can help. So that's kind of the speed version of where we're at. One of the things that we had a lot of interest in is public safety and healthcare workers. So I got a lot of folks starting to volunteer, and we know, I'll give you an example, and I'm sure that this is known to many of you, but the starting pay for a firefighter for Kootenai District and Coeur d'Alene is between $62,000 and $65,000. So if you remember that slide, it would mean that a family of 4 would have to have both of those people making firefighter wage or higher jobs in order to afford a home here. So we have a public safety and healthcare workers subcommittee that's being formed. And what they're really looking at is different ways we can pull revenue streams together that we can house our public safety and healthcare workers. We know that the folks that are in those industries are looking at it, but a lot of them have contact. I think I have about 30 people who are involved right now and interested in wanting to be in those 2 sectors alone, because they're seeing what the consequences in our community are going to be if we're not able to hire those types of folks and we aren't able to house them. So that's one of the other subcommittees that is just being started, and people who are interested in volunteering in that group. I think that that's going to be a lot of the private industry driving what's available, what they can do, and how we can help out that sector. We know they're all important. In every presentation I give, I want to share with you that there's somebody who's a remote worker who really says, gee, how, what about me? And I have to do this. And I know that there's teachers, there's snowplow drivers, there's street engineers. There's all of these different groups. And so we are really trying our hardest to say our overall umbrella is local workers, and that's what we want to focus on. We're talking about that in rental and home ownership, because that's the health of our community economically is, with those folks. We know we can't save every single person's home, and we can't dial back to 1986 prices, but what we're trying to do is our best to get teams of people to attack this in separate sectors and see what we can do to move the needle there. So having said that, if I have any other questions, let me take those now. And then we're going to do a poll to try to get a little bit more information fed back to our work group from this advisory group. And also, if you know any other advisory group members that should be involved in hearing this information and sharing anything that their group needs, I know we've had 2 or 3 more people join. We've added them since the last meeting, and anyone is welcome. So please, if you know some organization that needs to be involved, give me a shout.
Kiki, there was a comment from Anna Wilson in there about the starting teachers' wages at $40,369. Just saying that should be information for everyone to be aware of as well, because that also means that even 2 teachers couldn't afford a house at those rates.
And I know I just did a panel with Dina Nacarado a week or so ago, and she said that they can go across the border and make $50,000 more a year than they can here. And so we have some real challenges that are going to be coming up out of our schools with those kinds of situations. We know we have some examples of partnerships with school districts, and we have some conversations. I won't jump into that because I'm not here to present for the school subcommittee, but Anna, I appreciate you bringing that up, because I know that the school subcommittee is looking at housing issues, as was NIC a while back, and the people who are working on that aren't there anymore, but they were looking at ways to create faculty housing on their property and what the cities could do in order to help them do that. So I know that there's an ongoing conversation within the school districts about how are we going to provide housing for our teachers. I think the working group will tell you we had looked at a couple of different models, and I just circled back with Jackson, Wyoming again. They had originally started a partnership through a housing authority whereby they had 10-year contracts for teachers in order to live in different properties in their portfolio. And it's just an example, a template that maybe could be copied if we really need to start moving forward and are losing our teachers here. It is a crisis. It's a housing crisis. It's all over the country. We're not alone in this. There's people contacting us regularly trying to see what we're doing while we're doing the same thing. And there isn't a single solution. We're going to have to keep attacking it from every corner and every angle we can. Did I have other questions or comments?
There was just a clarification. Jeanette had asked Anna if that was just a post falls wage or if that was for the greater area. And so Anna clarified that starting number is set by the state. So most, if not all, follow the beginning wage numbers.
Okay, so all right then. I know we want to have happy news, and I'm trying to give it all I have to say we're making some progress here. I really want to be just, raining down solutions here, but they are coming. So Hillary, can we do the poll now and start to get
Sure.
some more things?
We have the first poll up online right now related to communication.
Hey, Hillary, do you want the panelists to take this as well or no?
If it gives you that option, I don't know that it will, but if it does,
Okay.
then go ahead.
It doesn't.
Yeah, I didn't think it did. Okay, we're still getting a few answers in. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and share the results.
Okay.
Looks like a clear response on that one.
Well, I hope that we're able to do what folks want and need. We need them to share this information. So as we're writing these scripts on the progress and what we're doing, I think we can copy them into some sort of a newsletter format and at least quarterly get information out digitally so that people can share this with the respective groups. There is a lot happening and it's a lot to absorb. I will share with you that I was told after one presentation that we should maybe microdose what we're doing and not try to have people understand the entire thing. It's very complex and we should probably try to figure out a way to do it in smaller bites. So that's what we're trying to get feedback from you, and I appreciate that. So next question.
Okay, I've launched this one on community awareness. Responses are coming in. All right, I'm going to end this poll.
Okay, so I'm not sure if the whole group can see the screen, but it looks like 61% are saying that they don't feel the community is aware. So that gives us some direction in our community outreach people and what we're going to need to do to get some more information going. So we will focus on that. Did we have another?
One more. This is the last one. I'll launch it now. Responses are still coming in. Okay, there are the results.
Great. All right. We'll share all these polling results. And I think that one of our thing is to try to put what our poll questions are and the results of them in kind of a web format so people can go back and see where we've been given direction. I would ask you though, at this time, any of the advisory group or working group members that does have folks who can volunteer, we are looking at needing research help on all of the committees. What that would be is people who say, yes, I have some time. I can pull up like the example I showed you in the beginning, do a little research on this project, see if there's people in the community who would be willing, able, or have the ability to champion one of the solutions like that. And then let us help them connect to the people who may be able to let them know if there is somebody currently doing some of those things. One of the things we were asked about, is there a rental assistance clearinghouse? People are contacting us. I know that Mark Tucker probably gets people that get referred to United Way, St. Vincent de Paul, but is there a clearinghouse that says if you need rental assistance, who's out there that can help with that? CDA, we know, does that. And so that's one of the things. So we're looking for researcher help assistance, finance help assistance. And so the easiest way to do that is there is a sign up sheet on the website, and those emails will come directly back. Somebody will get in touch with you, talk with you about what you're interested in, and help plug you into helping us with this very important solution project. So the next advisory group meeting is April 25th. So mark your calendar for that. You'll get a reminder a few days before, and you'll get the agenda and the link. Our next work group meeting agenda work will come out of what we're doing here. And keep in mind, if your group wants to have a presentation, we'll be happy to do that. The events calendar is constantly changing, and we want to get to as many people as we can and move some solutions forward. Does anyone have anything else that they have a question on or would like to share for the good of cause from the panelist group before we end our meeting today? very quiet and busy group. Thank you all very much for attending. Thank you all. I have a note in my chat box. So it looks like somebody sent that out. Maybe Sean can see what that is.
Yeah, did you see? So Donna Brundage did the findhelpidaho.com for housing help.
Great. So what our plan would be is for some of those types of things, we know that there's statewide organizations, and as this group gains more traction, point back to them, any of them that we can, to make sure that we get that information out to the public. All right, I am going to end the meeting recording, and thank you all again for your participation, and we will be getting you an update soon.